So welcome everybody, welcome to this Facebook Live and to the lovely ladies with me, and I look forward to telling you a little bit more about grounding. This morning I was talking about grounding in this morning session, which is now up on Zoom and is now up on Facebook, so you're more than welcome to go and have a look at those if you want to rerun those. This is what I call Neurodivergent Wednesday. And so every Wednesday since lockdown, I've been doing webinars in the morning and at 2 o'clock. And the ones in the morning are primarily around literacy and numeracy. The ones in the afternoon are primarily around the other neurodivergent skills. And I'm a forensic learning coach. So I spend my life trying to understand how people are learning and what we can do to help them. This morning I talked about grounding and the relatively generic grounding, and so it was about what people didn't know about grounding, because so often people say to me, I have no idea what you're talking about with respect to grounding. So this afternoon, and I think I mentioned this morning, one of my favorite expressions I got from a friend was that grounding is your membership card to planet Earth, basically. And so I explained some of the concepts this morning. What I want to do this afternoon is take you into how it affects people's learning and what happens when people are not grounded and you get into the deeper levels of grounding. For learning, and if what you need is an effective learning state where the body is relaxed and the mind is alert, able to focus and concentrate on the learning task at hand. We use grounding and balance nose diaphragmatic breathing to achieve this state. Basically, it's an effective learning state we're trying to move towards. And you get so many people that I meet that have said, I've tried everything and nothing works. I still can't get over the lack of focus, and basically they haven't developed an effective learning state. Many neurodivergent kids are ungrounded and anxious, and they've got an amped up nervous system, and all you need is a little push and they go over the top into a complete meltdown. And what I would like to remind you of is grounding is absolutely normal. It's nothing woo-woo about it. It's what most people, it's what a lot of people do naturally without knowing anything about it. So how did I find out about grounding and learning? I thought I ought to tell you that first. I found out about it by chance 20 years ago, and I have been talking about it ever since. And people say it's the golden nugget of empowering learning. How I found out about it was I was trying to help somebody stabilize their mental images, and I achieved it. I can't remember how, but she suddenly looked now grounded. And I went, I beg your pardon, this is 20 years ago, before I knew anything about this. And I said, what's grounding? And she said, that's what we do in yoga. And I went, okay, fine. So I then started a quick exploration as to what grounding was and discovered how it related to what I was teaching with literacy and then what I was teaching with all the neurodivergent kids. Most teachers and parents have never connected grounding and with learning. They may know what the two different words mean, but they've not connected the two together. I went into school recently before the lockdown. I work in my local primary school one day a week, and I did a session for ADHD and the year 3 teachers. That will be the 7-year-olds roughly, and they've happened to have a lot of ADHD kids in that year. And I went in and I talked to them about 3 different things in half an hour. One was breathing, one was grounding, and one was mental imagery. And nobody in all their teacher training between these 10 staff that were there, nobody had ever been taught about any of them. And they were quite amazed. What staff do know is that when kids are stressed, they can't learn. They know that one very, very well. But they don't know how to get them out of it in an easy way. During lockdown, and we were talking about this morning, so this is a repeat for people on this morning, some people are a lot calmer during lockdown and they're more grounded. I'm talking about the children really. or for the matter the parents. And some are much more stressed and they're much more ungrounded because they're trying to do so much. They're going to be, their anxiety levels are going to be well up. A lot of children actually know they need to be grounded, as seen by kids walking around with bare feet, but they don't know how to do it, and they don't know how to do it with keeping their shoes on. And that's what I was talking about this morning. It's hardly mentioned, grounding is hardly mentioned in any material on dyslexia, ADHD or autism. It's not in teacher training, and as usual the need is to look behind the behaviours. So their behaviour might be awful, but if they're not grounded, that's the reason why their behaviour is so bad. Being ungrounded is something that people recognise but don't know how to coach people how to get grounded. One of the things that's become really popular is various products which you might use, like heavy weighted blankets, or occupational therapists sometimes get them to pick up weights. But to be quite honest, it's much better to learn how to do it for yourself so that you don't have to have additional products. So being ungrounded when learning. When your brain is in fight or flight, you're in the logical front part of your brain is switched off. So you're not going to do anything logically. You're going to be in panic breathing and anxiety. You can't remember things, you can't concentrate. You've got mental imagery in chaos, and you're out of your body. And so there's too many mental images going on. You can hear outside the normal frequencies, and I'm going to talk to you about those too. And you can be really wobbly on your feet, so you can be falling over. If you ever hear that wobbly, clumsy child, you can almost guarantee that's when they're not grounded. And of course, all this chaos generates something like the picture on the right-hand side there of too much going on up here. And with all that lot going on, how is your child going to behave? Would you want to try and teach them anything? It's going to be nigh on impossible. And how many kids are like this on a minute-by-minute basis every day? Let me give you a little bit of science about this. There's 5 little chaps on the right-hand side of the screen there who are all not managing to get grounded. Walking on the earth gives you the electrical force coming up through the earth into your body that works like a battery. It recharges your body. Absolutely great. If we wear shoes, we don't get that. It lowers stress, heart rate, blood pressure, quiets inflammation, sleep disorders, pain, fatigue. You get poor digestion with not being grounded. You can get brain fog, and you can get some more serious diseases. And those 5 little characters on the right is, if you look at them, and I don't know if you can see these because of where the pictures come up on the screen, but I'll try. The first little lad is all in his head and he's disconnected from his body. So that's the disconnected grounding. Disassociated is, you know, if you walk up, if you're really ungrounded and if you walk up to a tree, then the tree roots go right down into the ground. And if you give the tree a hug, you can have a completely different experience. So you're grounding through something else. And some people are like doing that all the time. So they're disassociated from grounding. They're like as if they're carrying a spear around with them. The little chap on the right who's bouncing up and down has never been grounded at all. And he's never landed on the planet. Some children are like that when they come into the world. The bottom one here, the left one, is they're blocked, their energy system, and you can see the big blocks in this guy's legs. And every time somebody gets told off or they feel bad about themselves, they are likely to generate blocks in their body. And you've got the flying high guy here who is just roaring around all the time. And I want to give you a couple of quotes. There's an amazing book called Earthing, the most important health discovery ever, ? And I'll give you a quote from that is, if you're here and you're on the planet, So being firmly connected is a natural place to be. Most people, no standard electronic equipment needs a stable ground to function well. So too, the body needs a stable grounding to function well. Every living thing draws energy from the earth, whether it's through their feet, their paws, their hooves, or their roots. And the guys who wrote Earthing were a very interesting crew. One was a cardiac specialist, heart man. One was a cable TV man. And I think the third guy was a healer. I can't remember. But it's a fascinating book that I've read a couple of times. And the other one comes from a podiatrist in Massachusetts. Have you ever noticed the subtle tingling of sensation or warmth rising from your feet during a barefoot stroll on a sandy beach or a field glistening with dew? Do you feel revitalized at the end of your walk? If you did, you're experiencing the earth energizing your body. So if we take enough notice, we know about this. Now, the very interesting thing is we have filters that, and this is a very, very simple description of our filters. We have a sensory system which is churning information at us at a great rate of knots, something of the order of 11,000 bits per second. So if we take a notice of everything in our room, all our books, all our pictures, that's what's coming at us at 11,000 bits per second. And of course we can't cope with that because VAKOG means visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory. So it's coming at us through our 5 senses. Internally, we've got the same 5 senses, but what we need is it's stepping down to something like 50 bits per second. And we have lots of filters in our head, and the most obvious ones is delete. We get rid of loads of information. So I might see the books over there, but I'm not taking any notice of them. The next one is distortion, where we sort of make up gaps in between things that we have seen. And the third one is generalizing. So instead of thinking about thousands of different shoes, we know though that's a shoe. It's not thousands of different objects. And so that's how most of what goes on in here gets taken down from 11 million bits per second to 50 bits per second. And there's a lot of other stuff that's going on in there as well, about beliefs and about memories and about values. But that's what most of it, that's what most of the, how most of the information is being changed. Now, it seems that neurodiversity goes hand in hand with anxiety, and that we see in loads and loads of kids. And what I believe is happening is that the filters in your head are not working as well as they should. So the whole of the 5 sensory systems can get completely overloaded. And I want to give you an example, which is slightly unpleasant, I must admit, but just bear with me a minute. First of all, I'm going to do the auditory one. So auditory, this, you might, if you're involved with children who are neurodivergent, I'm sure this is going to ring true with you. Firstly, it's the quantity and the quantity. So the quality of what you're hearing, if you can see this picture, we've got infrared sounds, then we've got what humans can hear between 20 and 20,000 hertz, and then we've got ultrasounds. So I expect most people know if they've got a dog or a cat, they can hear sounds at a different frequency to us. That's why there's dog whistles which run at a different frequency. And animals like dolphins and bats are right up here. The interesting thing is, have you ever met a child who doesn't like the fluorescent lighting? Fluorescent lighting runs at about 60 hertz, which is about here somewhere. You're not meant to be able to hear it. Electricity also runs at 60 hertz. You're not meant to be able to hear it. I have met neurodivergent people who can hear the electricity. And what I believe is happening, and I'm still looking for research into this, is that they are hearing things outside the normal human experience when they're ungrounded. So if I just go back to being ungrounded a minute, if these filters aren't working very well and they're getting too much information in here, then that's what's happening. The next thing to just talk to you about is volume. We all know autistic children who put their hands over their ears. And what's that all about? That's about the volume on the right-hand side here. So humans can hear this whole range, but it goes from normal speech right up to the noise of a jet engine. Now, if they're ungrounded, I think it's going to be worse. There is a little chart there of all the different sorts of decibels you can hear. You know, the average office, normal conversation, vacuum cleaners, busy traffic, yelling, etc. And it goes right up to 100 decibels. Many neurodivergent people I've met I'm certain, are hearing much too loud. And it's not a function of their ears, it's a function of the fact they're not, of their filters. Let's talk about the sensitivity of visual processing, which is the thing I spend my life talking about. Too much uncontrolled information coming in. Chaos in visualizing words and numbers. Words and numbers are flying around all over the place. They'll go off at a tangent because the pictures that they're seeing are more interesting than something else. And with ADHD kids, that's really common, is that you're talking about one thing, they've thought about something else and something else and something else. And so they're over here and you're still over here. So that's called going off at a tangent or distraction. They can be horrified by night terrors. I was talking to somebody about night terrors, and if they've got great mental imagery, there is a possibility that this is still running riot when they're asleep. And so this is coming into their dreaming system. And it shows up in the following places with visual processing. Letters won't stay still. That's how dyslexics get this amazing ability to move letters around, but can make them feel quite ill. ADHD have got this really fast connections which look like distraction. And the guys who are doing autism are just showered with so much visual and auditory information. They would rather sit in the corner and play with a toy that's only this big, and then they don't have to worry about the rest of the world. So they decide to do the close down idea. Okay, so what's happening when you're ungrounded? Keeping your brain really busy, reorganizing stuff. I was talking to one of my practitioners the other day, and she said, when you asked me to do that, when I was asking her it was last week when I was talking to people about remembering what they read, and I said at the end of every sentence, make up a picture of what you're reading. And she said, I'm so nervous I can't remember what I've read. She said, I'm now reorganizing the words. So I'm making them in a different order and doing it. And I went, is this helpful? And she went, no. So she said, I'm going to stop myself doing that. You're watching and listening to too much and you've got chaos. And with children, anything they can do to distract themselves is a good idea. They might try headbanging to see whether that works. And lots of children try that one. They may try talking so loud they're drowning everybody else. They're drowning the noise in their head out. And they may just close down to the world, as I mentioned earlier. I would say grounding is a journey. I first found out about it, 15 years ago, something like that. And this morning I did grounding, and it was sort of general well-being. This class has been doing grounding for learning and memory and motivation. And what you want to do is alleviate the nasty things about being ungrounded and keep the possibilities of creativity. Because some of the benefits of being ungrounded is you get amazing creativity, amazing problem solving, intuition and enlightenment. But at the same time, you don't want to be driven mad by too much you're hearing too much or you're seeing too much in your mental imagery. It's not an instant fix, it's definitely a journey, and it needs working on, and you need to find out how it works best for you. And we were talking about various techniques this morning about how you how it can work. There is there's some more examples. I was talking this morning about this pack of cards, and what else you can do to other ways you can find to get grounded, and everybody's got a different way. You can hug a tree, that's one. You can eat root vegetables, that's really interesting. The root vegetables are much better for helping you get grounded. And E-numbers and crisps and stuff like that is the exact opposite. You can make an earth bed, is one of the ones here, with a little lad lying on the grass. And on the back of these cards it says, the physical connection, this is making an earth bed. The physical connection with the earth gives you a much greater sense of your physical boundaries, which brings your attention and focus to the present. And these cards are really nice because they tell you how to do it, and they give you a version for the kids as well. There is earthing products which can be really helpful when you're asleep. There is earthing mats and earthing sheets and all sorts of things like that. But I would rather teach people to ground themselves and not have to rely on physical stuff. I'm now going to read you a couple of, and actually I'm also putting these up. I'm just looking at the time. I'm also putting these up on the on YouTube, which is the recordings of these. And I think what I'll do, because of the time for the recording, I will just do grounding yourself. So just imagine for a minute that you've got your feet flat on the floor. You can imagine your feet flat on the floor. You can imagine the base of your spine connected to whatever you're sitting on, and you're thinking from the base of your spine, just imagine you've got a grounding column that goes down like a tree, straight from the base of your spine and down to the center of the earth. And that's called your grounding column. And just imagine there's energy coming up through your legs, clearing and cleaning the energy channels and into the base of your spine and down into the ground. You can have it running as a loop around there. And one of the things is you can do it whatever way works best for you. Just imagine yourself firmly connected to the ground and remind yourself of this as often as possible. And there's 3 videos that are going up on YouTube on my channel, which is grounding yourself, grounding the environment, and releasing blocks, because a lot of children have got blocks from having bad time. And there's some great metaphors that you can use with children to release some of the blocks. And so what are you hoping to do? Where are we hoping to get to? And what will it be like? Hopefully you'll get into a state which is calm, gentle breathing, well rested, comfortable environment you can concentrate in, and you enjoy the enjoyment of just being and learning without this continuous stuff going on in your head. So thank you all for joining that. There's the elephants in the classroom, which I recommend to everybody. The only pity about elephants in the classroom was it was published before before I got into all the breathing techniques, but you'll find those up on YouTube as well.